I call the Ayer Select Board to order on Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. This meeting of the Ayer Select Board will be held in person at a location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technical problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make their plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The Select Board meetings air live on Comcast Channel 8 and live on airpublicaccess.org. I'd like to ask everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any adjustments to the agenda this evening?
I have nothing.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is approved. There are no announcements this evening. So next up on our agenda is public input. Is there anyone for public input? Please come forward.
James O'Connor, Town Moderator, Town of Ayer.
Evening, James.
I wanted to join the meeting for a moment to request that I be placed on the agenda for September the 21st, and that I will be away during the following meeting. But as we're preparing for town meeting, I've been speaking to fellow moderators in the Neshoba Valley, and several of them have heard from their boards of health due to the COVID-19 Delta variant increases. They're considering having the meeting outside. I don't think we've discussed that in Ayer, and current proposals and plans are to have it at the regional high school. So I would like to be able to discuss with the board as we move forward what is in the benefit of the health and safety of the residents that will attend. In addition to that, I have some ideas, and Mr. Pomprian and I have met, and I met with our town clerk today to talk about some of the ideas that I had for town meeting. And the third thing I want to report is, some of you know, I submitted an email last week that we do now have a selection committee for the finance committee. So I would hope we can establish the publication of the vacancy announcement for the two positions to fill. And that's all I have to say for tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thanks
just
very
to
much.
comment,
Sure, please.
this board is not a part of the decision as to where town meeting is held.
Correct.
That's the town moderator, and we have held it under COVID before, but
Correct.
that's under your purview. That is not under this board's purview. That's between you and the Board of Health.
I understand.
And
but
as far as I've heard some of the changes that you're potentially making, I'm just going to remind you, it's also an open meeting. So any
Yes.
changes cannot be approved by this board, has to be approved at town meeting because it is an open meeting. So you can discuss, but we can't be part of those decisions.
maybe not the part of the decision, but the interest of working together as a team towards the benefit of Ayer, I think that the board, along with the Board of Health, would want to know and discuss the possible idea of having a meeting outside or whatever.
I think
the
it
Board
was
of
looked
Health
at,
would
it
recommend.
just, there's no place to hold it. That's when previous conversations that went on. But anyways, that's all. I just wanted to remind it that this
Yeah.
board cannot make those decisions.
Understood.
No, I realize
Thank
it
you.
is under the state law, the moderator's purview, but I do want to have everybody in conversation about the subject so that we're all working together. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Is there anyone else here for public input this evening? Mr. Sullivan?
Connie Sullivan from 79 East Main Street. Here tonight to advocate again on behalf of the families at Devon's Crest that are facing eviction.
Yes.
One pause. Are we still under public input? Because he's actually on the agenda
Yes.
for the
I was just
update.
going to say that you are scheduled on the agenda right after public input, so can I just see if there's anyone else who has public input? Would that be
Very
okay?
good. Yep.
Okay.
I'll step back. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public input? Do we have anyone on the Zoom meeting?
Nope.
No? Okay. All right. Sorry, Ms. Sullivan, you can come back now. I apologize.
I just wanted to make sure there was nowhere else.
Bad timing on my part.
Yeah. No worries. Thanks for coming down.
So I just wanted to kind of recap, first of all, where we're at, given our last contact with the board. The town administrator, on behalf of the board, was kind enough to set up a Zoom meeting. We had a number of players involved. The town was gracious enough to offer to try to reach out to the landowner, Brady Sullivan, was the landowner of Devon's Crest, to see if we can find out who the decision makers are from that company, and to see if we could work collaboratively in addressing the situation, the eviction that the 45 families of the Devon's Crest Tenants Association are facing. They've been given a 60-day notice, and we've got about 27 days left.
Okay.
I understand, and correct me, Robert, if I'm incorrect, that the Brady Sullivan declined to engage with us as a group, together with the town. So, that leads me to my next question, and that is, what is the backup plan that's being developed by the town to try to help these families? Again, these are hardworking families. These are no-fault evictions. These are families that are up to date on their rent, but they're also families that, given their moderate and low-income status, they just don't have places to go. So we're really looking to the town for some help and some leadership, Mr. Chair. Part of that is, has the town reached out to our state delegation about funding sources that would be available to engage with this situation and Brady Sullivan as a property owner? I don't know that the town has or has not.
There have been some individual conversations, I believe. However, when we've mentioned about the state looking at taking action, it gets pushed back to the town. So we're kind of back to where we were originally.
What I'm specifically addressing is the funding, the federal funding that the state is sitting on to help with the housing crisis. Has there been overtures to our state delegation, state senator, and our two state reps as to how those monies might be able to be accessed? And has the town actually shown support for the Tenants Association? Because if the state delegation isn't getting a sense of support from the town, we're certainly not going to get anywhere with any kind of funding source from the state.
So the last meeting, we talked about reaching out to the state delegation. I mean, they're following along with what's going on. I don't know if they've reached out to us specifically, since we've reached out to them a while back.
Mr. Chair, through you and the board, to be completely honest, in my conversation with the state senator, indicated to me when I asked him what his plan was, he told me he didn't have a plan. The funding issue is the purview of the state delegation, not the purview of the town. And the town is supportive of the residents in this situation, as I said on the meeting that we had. We have provided information, we have provided resources. We have asked Brady Sullivan to meet with the Devon's Crest Association. They have no interest in meeting. They've made it clear to my office that Devon's Crest is not for sale. We've been trying to work on that. To say that the town is not supportive of the Devon's Crest Association is not accurate.
I didn't say that. I
Well,
asked if the town had shown their support to our state delegation.
support for,
The families at Devon's Crest facing eviction.
yes, we set up a meeting, we provided resources. Through the chair, respectfully, and we talked about this at length at your meeting, the proposal or the request for this town to take Devon's Crest by eminent domain is a non-starter. And as the town manager, Professionally and personally, and having been through this, it is not the purview or the scope of this board or this town to take that property by eminent domain. We do not have the capacity to do that, and you know that. The other thing is, if you look at the record, cities and towns do not get into the rental business for a very clear reason. They don't have the capacity to do it. Brady Sullivan paid $11.8 million for that property. If we were to go forth with an article to take it by eminent domain, this board would have to do the following. One, put forth $11.8 million as the initial offer. We would have to do an appraisal. The appraisal that we did on Depot Square, which was much smaller, was about $30,000. That isn't in the budget. I'd have to request from the board another $50,000 in initial legal costs. So now we're beginning to approach $20,000. If we were successful, I'm not a lawyer, I said this at the meeting, so everything I'm saying, I said at the meeting, there is not a standing that we're aware of where a municipality has taken, in this case, private property for affordable housing purposes, because the eminent domain has to be for all of the public good. Now, of course, it's of an interest to those that live there, and we sympathize with that, but the other 8,000 people, is that in the public interest for them? So if we were successful, then at that point, the town of Ayer owned it. We're now in the landlord business. We would have to bring those units up to code. That's not optional. There's those costs, plus the relocation costs for the individuals. While we do that, we would still have to move them. And then, moving forward, we'd have to manage it. So I am, through you, Mr. Chair, publicly, and I said this at the meeting, Connie, you know where I stand on it, that eminent domain is not a viable option. So I think that needs to be, that just needs to be taken off of the table. I cannot, having been at the last 11 town meetings, the hardworking people of Ayer, which Devon's Crest folks are as well, fight tooth and nail over $5,000 to $10,000 expenditures. Right off the bat, we're looking at a proposal that could raise everybody's residential taxes easily $500 to $600. The state senator came down here, where's his plan? In this money he's talking about that he's sitting on, we don't have access to that. And even if we did, it has to go through the whole legislative process, the House, the Senate, and the governor. This is a horrible situation that these folks are in, that is not an easy solution. What is your proposal? I mean, what do you think we should do?
If I could address Mr. Pomperion's
Please.
comments, Mr. Chair. Because it appears that even though we held an hour-long Zoom, Mr. Pomperion perhaps didn't hear any of the comments that we made in response to, and I'll call them scare tactics, that he just expressed.
Mr. Chair,
Hold on.
respectfully, I did not attack the gentleman. I don't appreciate the characterization.
I didn't
We're not
say that.
here-
Let's keep this tone
Thank
civil,
you.
please.
Thank
So, Mr. Sullivan, please, go ahead.
I stressed on behalf of the Tenants Association that eminent domain certainly is not a first choice. It is a choice of last resort, but it needs to be an option that's left on the table.
Given the timing of when everything would even play out doing that, you'd be looking at months before we would even be in the situation to start processing that. And at
That's
that
right.
point, with the number of days that are remaining until the first eviction orders are out, those residents would be gone
All
anyway.
right, well, first of all, let me correct the timing issue.
Please.
Because the 27 days is the notice to quit. That doesn't mean the tenants are forced out of their apartments after 27 days.
Okay.
What it means is that the landlord may then proceed with formal eviction proceedings in the district court or the housing court. Those proceedings could take very well several months up to a year, depending on how they unfold. So, yes, we probably do have a couple months to work with. And I would hope that we're talking about a number of options in the meantime. We certainly want to see Brady Sullivan to continue to offer financial incentives as they've done to some tenants, although I don't know if that's been of any help to the 45 families that are part of the Devon's Association. Tenants Association. It certainly has helped other residents that are at Devon's Crest. We certainly expressed to the town that taking all of Devon's Crest by eminent domain certainly was never even envisioned by the Tenants Association. We're talking about 45 families, not the 110 plus units that exist at Devon's Crest. So the scope of what our town manager purports to be 11.8 million plus is certainly something much, much less than that.
So how do you bifabricate that from the rest of the property though? Like, what's the I'm trying to understand, because there, you're saying like Devon Crest in general, which is the 110 units of.
I'm not saying Devon's Crest in general. That's what I'm hearing from our town manager. We have 45 families, and I know that we were working with the town GIS system to identify which buildings those 45 families actually live in. And there can be a taking building by building. But it would substantially reduce the cost to the town of any potential eminent domain taking. But trying to work with a plan is imminent for this board, because I'm getting the sense that the fallback position of the board is, well, we made the phone call to Brady Sullivan, and there's not much else we either can or are willing to do. I mean, if that becomes the case, we could very well have tenants from Devon's Crest camping out on the town hall lawn, or trying to get some shelter as the weather gets bad in the Great Hall on the second floor. Are we prepared for that? Where are they going to go? I know that there was a similar issue that occurred over at the Casa Manor Motel. Different than our situation, but it involves people that are potentially looking to be kicked out of there. People that are modest means, again, don't have many options on where to go. And I'm hearing that the town, at least through the Board of Health, was offering, well, there's shelters. Is that really the option that we're looking at? And do we even have shelters that can take all of these families? And are these families going to continue to keep their kids in our school district? So I'm looking for the town to step up its show of support, number one. Number two, if you don't think there's been effective dialogue with the state delegation, then maybe the Tenants Association can help entice that. And together, between the town and the state, we can start to work on a plan. A moratorium on evictions is another possibility. I know that Boston has one, Cambridge has one. They're still in effect. Are they going to come under attack? Likely, at the legal level. But it's providing some relief to those tenants in the meantime.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, that idea of the moratorium on evictions was brought forward. We did speak to town council about it, as well as the Attorney General's office. There's not provision that we can, a section of neighborhood that or certain houses that we can put a moratorium on evictions.
That's right.
So it would be like a town-wide.
Moratorium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that being considered as a possible option if we need it?
I wasn't aware that we had looked at that.
Yeah, neither was I.
Okay.
So what did I'm sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So what did the Attorney General say?
Well, the question that was brought forth to us early on in this process was, could you just do a moratorium on evictions in Devon's Crest neighborhood? And the Attorney General's office said no. Then it was kind of pending in flux because of what's going on with the coronavirus eviction moratoriums. In different towns, that was how it was posed to us, just that neighborhood.
So we
Which
couldn't
was-
do it for just the neighborhood, we'd
It'd
have to
be
do it as
townwide.
a townwide, which I understand, because otherwise
It
you've
makes
got
sense.
favoritism and
Correct.
whatnot. And the state has not extended the moratorium on evictions, correct?
Well, they have until the end of September, I believe.
The state of Massachusetts.
October 3rd.
October
3rd.
Yeah.
And that's on the federal level or the state level? What's the state level done? I'm trying to get all these pieces, there's so many moving parts. Okay. And if I could
Please.
before I forget, so you're recommending of the 45. Now, the 45 could be one house over here, one house over here, 3 over here. It could be on various streets.
We'll know better shortly. I mean,
So the problem is even trying to present that to the town, because now the town is gonna be like, well, why'd you let, others go? Why didn't we do this as a whole? Why are we picking out this other town? Now you've got the neighbors upset, well, why didn't you do anything to try to protect me? So now you've got this thing with favoritism. The other problem, first of all, this actually makes me sick to my stomach, okay? I know that somebody's gonna hear that and go, oh, yeah. It does. It actually makes me sick to my stomach, especially after all that we have gone through in the past year and a half, okay? It really does. All right, so I want that clear, that as a human being, I am disgusted, and I am actually trying to figure out the best way, not just for the people that are being affected, but that it balances out for the whole town, because that's what we have to do. And you know that. You've sat here at this table, okay? You know that. And there comes the problem, because now if we're the landlords, every time we need to get something fixed, we got to go back to town meeting. We can't keep calling up town meeting every other month because we've got to fix a roof and whatnot. There comes another problem, and now the town's getting upset going, well, we're so worried about their roof and everything. What about the school that we need built? Therein lies the whole broad picture, and that's the problem I can tell you that I definitely have, because I can't just look at that one picture. I have to look at the whole scene. Okay, so it is heartbreaking. Okay, I will probably get really sick when I leave here tonight. Okay, so I'm going to not do it now. All right, but I want to emphasize that's how upset I actually am about this scenario. Okay, we have lost ourselves in humanity, and we've learned nothing over the past 18 months. And now, see, now I'm just going to go off on a tangent, which we don't want me to do.
well, first of all, it's great to hear your passion, because we need people to show their passion. And the board's been very silent up until tonight. So to hear that you care goes a long way to the tenants, the families at Devon's Crest. But if I may address one issue that you brought up, and this was also an issue that was brought up by our town manager, excuse me. And that is the town, if it were to take over some of the properties, right, becoming the landlord, so to speak. The town can do a taking and then deed the property to a nonprofit, so that the town doesn't have any more management involvement after the original taking. And the nonprofit can deal with any repairs that have to be done. So I know that was again, a concern of the town manager, but it's one that's pretty easily resolved. As far as whether this would be a taking for just specific families or for the benefit of the public, these units would be taken to create affordable housing for the town. You happen to have some families that are ready and willing to be and continue to be the occupants of those affordable housing units. So it is a public purpose for our town as a whole. So I would hope that, those issues of, is this really a taking for a public purpose, and the town, or would a nonprofit be in charge of managing this going forward? I would hope that those are hurdles we certainly can get over. Again, if that option of last resort, eminent domain taking, ends up having to come into play. But if it's not on the table, you don't create the incentive for Brady Sullivan to do anything different than they're doing now. It becomes the leverage that the town can exercise to get Brady Sullivan to engage, number one, and number two, maybe to work over time, much more time than would be required during an eviction process, but to work over time with those 45 families of the Devon's Crest Tenants Association to find other placements or state subsidies to help subsidize rent so that they'd be paying those market rents to Brady Sullivan, right? Paying what they're now paying, plus with a state subsidy to get them up to what Brady Sullivan is considering to be market rents. without the option of last resort, we really limit ourselves as a town on what we can and can't do for these families. So,
Alright, so actionable items, I would propose we reach out to the state delegation with a
Include
significant.
Representative Harrington. She was there. Where's she been?
Eldridge was there too.
Yeah. I know Eldridge has made a couple phone calls, but where's she been?
So my proposal is let's start there tomorrow, reach out to the delegation. Reach out to the state delegation, find out what action or options we have through the state delegation in relations to whether it's funding that's been provided by the federal government, what other options there are within the state.
What about the town doing an eviction moratorium?
I think that's our next step locally, so start with the state delegation immediately, and then for the next meeting, we can start reviewing that and what goes into that.
Well, the next meeting, the next meeting is on what date?
21st.
The 21st. So we really would have to make a decision on the 21st as to whether or not. So-
We could have a meeting next week. if
We can have a meeting
Yes,
next
we
week.
could do that.
I keep my Tuesdays free.
Okay, that's good. Mr. Sullivan?
Chair, prior to your next meeting, we should be able to identify which housing units the 45 families live in. So we have a finite idea on what properties are involved. And once we have that, trying to get some kind of an estimate as to what the cost of an appraisal would be for those particular housing units, if you will, I might suggest could be a third action item.
Okay.
We had a citizen step forward who was very facile with the GIS system for the town, and we have the listing of where everybody lives. We're trying to meld that together so we can identify the specific properties.
Okay,
Great.
we'll do that.
Thank you, and again, it was just great to hear the passion and support coming from the board tonight.
I
Thank
hope
you.
this all works out.
Thank you.
You okay? Alright. Next item we have on the agenda is Class 1 license application from JP Rivard Trailer Sales Incorporated. Is there anyone here for that this evening?
Yes. Good evening, board members. Tom Gibbons for JP Rivard Trailer Sales Inc.
Anyone, Mr. Gibbons?
And with me tonight is Matthew Rivard and his father Joseph Rivard, that are the owners of the corporation. So I see that Mr. Copeland is not here tonight. I know that this vote requires two positive votes, and so, I'd like to have a minute after some initial discussion as to whether or not we ask for a continuance. I'm aware that the town may want a continuance, and if I may ask Carly a question. Did the town council get back to you on the zoning issue?
No, I haven't.
No.
And I had written in the packet, I mean, I knew it was gonna take a couple days for them to do.
Yeah.
That we table this item anyway until we get that zoning review back from town council.
So my goal was initially to present on the number of elements. There's basically 6 elements, I believe, for the board to make a decision on issuance of a Class 1. One of them being a proper place for the business. And I get that issue, last Friday I certainly understood it to be an issue, but today I came into the building department and I looked at the file, and I don't know if the members have had a chance to go through that file. But this question has been asked and answered. If you look at the file in the 2002-2003 range, there was an issue of Paul Ruthier's use there, and which was basically the same thing, maintenance of truck trailers, not only his own but other people's, and sale of parts for those things. And the issue was whether or not that was an allowed use. Town council gave an opinion that it was not an allowed use and that it wasn't grandfathered, I believe. But the fact is, the town council's not the zoning enforcement officer, the town council's not the board of selectmen, not the ZBA, not the planning board. And subsequent in the file, on numerous occasions, zoning enforcement officers have found that it was a non-conforming use. And our argument is that our use is the same as Ruthier's. I believe that even before Ruthier, there was an entity there doing the same thing. But so having come in and looked at that file today, I think that the board shouldn't be going back to town council because that question has been asked and answered.
If I may, just specifically, we all agree that the use has been the same, servicing the tractors, storing the tractor trailers there. It's the addition of the sales into the industrial district, which is what I'm looking at with town council. We're not asking them to review the history. I read the file 15 times. It's the addition of the sales.
So you don't have any issue with the repairs?
No, because that's
it's the issue
been
of the sale.
ongoing for,
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
I think everyone is on the same page on that.
yeah.
It's the sales.
So, sales is in the same definition under the bylaw. It's auto sales, services, garage, and certain, maybe fuel station or something. It's all in one definition. And in fact, J.P. Ruthier sold parts. Now granted, they didn't sell the whole truck apparently, or the trailer is what we're talking about. But Mr. Ruthier says he did sell parts. So I don't think that even with the sales, it's a different use. It's certainly the same category under the bylaw. So I guess if tonight, because we would like to have a full board, but tonight if I can get some indication from the board members that in fact the only issue related to the use of the property is sales. It's not having the trucks there, it's not servicing the trucks, it's really the sales is the issue.
No, it's right, I mean, that's my
That's my
position right now, is that
understanding,
it is just the piece on the sales, which we're waiting for town council to come back to us on some clarification with that.
And have they given any indication on issues of sales?
No, not yet. I'm waiting for that back. But it is, two kind of different lenses. We're looking at this through, obviously, zoning enforcement, but then chapter 140, section 58 has certain provisions for class 1 sales, one being that it would be his primary use of the property to do sales. But now, we're saying, well, he's really storing, and then he's gonna do sales. So there's a number of questions that are arising from it.
So I know in the comments that I saw, I didn't see anybody raise that issue of the sales is associated with other aspects of what he does there, the storage and the repair.
Yeah, I think the building commissioner had something as an accessory use, maybe.
Well, yeah, and I think his opinion was that the sales would be accessory to the use. Although, again, this is all stuff, I don't think that's even important today, but I understand it. But, and just so I understand, so I can be better prepared for the next meeting, the issue is what aspect of the sales that's problematic?
Just doing the sales of class 1 vehicles there, which is new to the use. I mean, that's new to the property.
But you said principal.
Well, that's in 140, section 58, that has to be their principal business, is to sell new cars.
So I think the principal word in that is whether you go for class 1 and class 2, right? Class 2 is for used auto
Right.
parts and autos. Class 2 is where the principal sales
Yeah.
is new and used is secondary to that. So I don't think it relates to the property, it relates to what license you're applying under.
Right, which is the one they're applying for. The applicant has to demonstrate or maintain access to the repair facility, which they do, sufficient to enable satisfy warranty obligations. The applicant is the proper person to engage in the business, which business will be its principal business. That's under the class 1 statute. That his place of business is suitable for the purpose of the business. And that they secure a bond, which we know we've done that.
But I
So
guess,
really our question to town council, if sales are not allowed in the industrial district, is that a proper, suitable place for the business?
Okay,
And that's what we have town council looking at.
right, but just so I'm clear, so next, the principle, the language of principal use in the statute, are you saying that that relates to the place of business, or it relates to the sales and which license you would apply for? Because
It would be the, well, they are contracted with like an approved vendor, what's it,
yeah, we have some,
so we went based, my understanding is that it was gonna be new sales based off of the application, and you stating that they were moving from Chelmsford here to do sales.
right,
And as you know, in a class 2, you don't have to have an approved vendor to contract with.
right.
So my understanding was always gonna be new, and it's saying that's gonna be the principal business.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is it relates to which license you apply for. That principal business language doesn't apply to the land that you're doing. So the principal business doesn't have to be on the property sale of cars. Whether you apply for a class 1 or a class 2 is determined on what you do.
On what you sell.
Right, and so it sounds to me like the concern is his principal business at that location, selling new
Okay, I see
trailers.
what you're saying, yeah.
And now what I'm saying is that just determines which license we apply for, because I think under class 2, you don't have a right to sell any new vehicles.
Right, just use.
Right. So that's, I guess,
So basically, in that aside, and I see what you're saying more clearly now, but to me, it's is the
Carly,
place
Yeah,
of
we're
business
gonna pause the
suitable?
conversation for a moment until Janice comes back, sorry.
Oh, I
Thank you,
didn't
Robert.
realize she
Yeah.
left,
Yeah.
sorry.
Just through the
Yeah,
chair,
please.
just a point of order. With select board member Livingston away from the table, there isn't a quorum. She should be back momentarily
Thank you.
under the open meeting law.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Robert.
Yeah. Sorry.
so I will wait.
Just a
I
brief.
just talked to my client outside for a minute about the fact that we may want to continue because of the missing number.
Feel free, please.
Just for the record, the board is just currently in recess, waiting
Recess.
for a quorum.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm a little rusty, I'm running a meeting, apologies.
Oh, there she is.
Splash some cold water on my face.
They just stepped out, they'll be right back.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, we would like to continue, and I know the town would like to too. We'd like to continue so that we hopefully will have a full board at the next meeting. But it sounds like the issue isn't any use at the property other than the sales.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And I know we still have to satisfy the other requirements, I believe that we do, but we'll make that presentation at the next meeting. And when's the next meeting?
I think it's the
September 21st.
September
21st,
21st.
yes. Is that the first day of fall?
I
What is-
believe so.
I think the day before, I think that one.
Okay.
So I'll submit some of the documents
Okay.
that I will submit at the next, words and I submit at the next meeting, but just so you have them.
Yep.
On behalf of everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And it was an act before.
Okay.
So I can move. But I would encourage, well, I guess if we narrowed it down to that issue with the use, but I would also encourage you to look at the building department's file, because, it's our position that sales of some sort were also part of that. So granted, it wasn't new or used, it wasn't a class license, but then I would ask the board at the next meeting, what is the harm? If sales were happening there, if the only concern is sales of these trailers, and we'll be able to describe what's involved in that, I would suggest that there isn't a harm there that would give rise to not granting the license. I understand that's the board's prerogative, but hopefully, there'd be some thought given to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
And I know
much.
We'll get the
Thank
time.
Absolutely.
Have a good evening.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, good night. All right, next on the agenda, we have Mark Wetzel, DPW Director, and Dan Van Schalkwyk, Town Engineer Department of Public Works. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening. We got a microphone, or we just speak loudly?
Speak
Louder.
louder.
There we go.
Yep.
So we have two items on the agenda. Dan will go first, and we just need a change order approved for one of our projects.
Yeah, good evening. The first item is approval of change order 1. It's for our FY21 sanitary sewer rehab project. So that's our II sewer collection system rehab project. We finished the lining of all the pipes and we're into the manhole rehab now. And when we did the lining, we found a few locations in this work area that we should add on to the work, which what we're doing with the manholes, we're also lining those to prevent infiltration from getting in them. And when you line the pipes, it kind of creates, it seals those pipes up and then the water wants to migrate toward the manholes. So we actually noticed it happening with all the rain we've been getting. So anyways, the change orders for that and a few other changes to the manhole rehab with raising grade, covers above grade. And the change order amount is $12,857.50 for signature by the chair.
Okay. Any questions?
I have no questions.
All right. I don't have any questions.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the change order 1 for the FY21 sanitary sewer rehabilitation project in the amount of $12,857.50.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to get this one to work so Scott can see it and not have to crank back for your presentation. Which is on which wand of this one?
That one?
Yeah, so you can drive
All
with
right.
that.
See if it works. Hey, there we
I can always turn around if it's easier.
Yeah,
It's not a big
probably.
deal.
go. Well set?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
I'm sure you're excited to get a presentation tonight about important information about lead in your drinking water, and I'll give you a little background, and it'll build on this as we go through. So, one thing with our water supply, we fix one thing and we break another. So,
Stop doing that.
and part of the fixing is with the PFAS contamination. That's all really new technology. No one's done it before. We're sort of the guinea pigs. And so we put the treatment in at Grove Pond well field, and we anticipated that with this type of treatment we're using that there would be some changes in the water chemistry that could affect the corrosiveness of the water, which then impacts the compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act lead and copper rule. We designed a solution into the plant, but we did some testing and didn't feel like we needed to start implementing that, and I'll get into that in a little more detail. But what happened was we sampled our water system and we were over what they call the action limit. And so this is part of a public education program that we have to implement if we're over the action limit. When I first started in town as the superintendent of public works in 2012, we didn't have any kind of corrosion control and we had a violation. We designed and implemented a corrosion control treatment at the facilities, and we haven't had any problems since up until this summer's testing. So what are we going to talk about in this presentation? Why are we talking about lead in our drinking water? I'll give you a little bit of background on that, but I'll get into a little more detail. How does lead get into the drinking water? How much lead are we talking about? What are we doing about it? What are the potential health issues with lead exposure? And how can the individual homeowners make sure their water is safe? We're doing our best to do that, but there are some steps that the homeowners can also take. So why are we talking about lead in our drinking water. So the US EPA Safe Drinking Water Act has specific requirements for testing for lead. We call it the lead and copper rule. And so basically, we take samples at between 40 and 45 locations around the town twice a year. We do it once in generally the late spring, early summer, and then in the middle of the fall. So we're probably going to be starting the next round this month. The sites have to be approved by the state Mass DEP, and there's a specific requirements for how we select those, because if you buy a new house now, you have all lead-free solder, lead-free fixtures, either copper or plastic service pipes, so you really won't see any lead in your water. But in older homes, and specifically, I think up to the early 80s, is where we see the biggest problem. So we pick locations around town, and then we also test the schools, including the high school, the elementary school, and the two preschool. So what are the EPA requirements? So basically what we do is we take a 500 milliliter bottle and we distribute it to these houses, and they get up first thing in the morning and they take the sample. So it's called a first draw sample, so it's before they've flushed any of their system out. And then we send the results out, or send the samples off to the lab, and 90% of those samples have to have lead at an action level below 15 parts per billion. That's the ppb. So if we are over the action limit, then we have to submit a plan to the DEP that says this is what we're going to be doing about it, and we've already completed that, and so that plan is approved and we're working on implementing it. It also requires a public notification and education program. So I'll get into that a little bit later. So how does lead get into the water? So when we take a sample at our well field, there's no lead in the water. What happens is, because the water has a certain corrosiveness, and you guys might remember from high school science, 7 pH is neutral, below 7 is acidic, above 7 is basic, and generally our water is fairly acidic. It's about 6 instead of 7. And then there's other things that factor into that, whether it's corrosive or not, which is the hardness and the alkalinity and the temperature and things. So our water is what we would call mildly aggressive or mildly corrosive. So when that water goes into the distribution system, it goes into your household plumbing, it will leach some of the lead out of whatever plumbing the water is exposed to. So it may be your pipes in your house, or your service pipe that goes into the house, the solder that they put the pipe together with. A lot of it is from the fixtures and the faucets. Those are made with brass that has a lead component in it, except for nowadays you buy lead free. And then you may have some other plumbing fittings that have some lead in it. So the amount of lead in your water depends on how long the water sits in the pipe, the age and the type of plumbing and faucets, and then the water quality. So here are some of the sources. Copper pipe with lead solder, and that's probably most of the houses, but the lead solder after 1986 was low lead. Lead service lines, we don't have any lead service lines in town. We do have a few lead goosenecks. We try to dig those up and replace them, but they're pretty short, so there's not a lot of contact or exposure in those. And then I think most of the lead contamination that we see is from faucets and fixtures in the house. Probably all of you have heard of Flint, Michigan, and the problems they had. That kind of started the ball rolling on lead and copper, or lead contamination in water. We're nowhere near what was going on in Flint. Flint was,
It was a man-made disaster.
right, and it wasn't well managed. It was also, in my opinion, as a water supply professional, it was a little bit overblown what some of the problems were. There was definitely a problem. They definitely didn't address it correctly. But when you see pictures of people holding up bottles of water that's all rusty, lead's not rusty water, that's other problems in the water. But as I said, Flint has a lot of lead service pipes. There's a lot of places that do. Washington DC has lead service pipes. I know there's a big program going on in Newark, New Jersey to replace lead service pipes. Boston has some lead service pipes. But we're not dealing with that. And if we were, our problem would be much worse. And we've also been treating the water to reduce the corrosiveness. So we're not in this crisis problem. So you can see our 90th percentile sampling over the last few years has been well below the action limit until this year. And actually, we resampled some of the places just recently, and the levels have dropped back down. And I can explain that a little bit also. So this is kind of a one worst case scenario. So why is it so much higher? So we do add a chemical to raise the pH in the water, and we optimize that based on different measurements out in the water distribution system and what we've seen for our previous lead and copper results. I was a little nervous when we first discovered the PFAS problem, and we started turning this well off and turning that well on. It changes all the chemistry around it. It's hard to treat. Luckily, we were below the action limit, but I was really surprised that we were, because we had so many changes in our water chemistry at that point. But with the PFAS, or the forever chemical contamination in our water supply, we put in a new treatment process. There's a good picture of the process. It uses what's called ion exchange. It takes the water and it goes through this media that grabs the PFAS chemicals, but it also grabs other chemicals in the water. And the big one that changes is it takes some of the sulfate out of the water. And what we've discovered is the chloride sulfate ratio in the water is very important to keeping a more stable or less corrosive water. And when it takes the sulfate out and the chlorides go up, then the water becomes more corrosive, specifically for lead. It's not as big a problem with copper, but it is for lead. And this was anticipated. So we added a zinc orthophosphate treatment process, and there's a couple issues with that. We had some startup issues with it, as well as it really works best if you're treating all of your water, and we haven't put that system in place at Spectacle Pond yet either. So some of the places, like at Selectman Hood's house, he's probably getting a little bit of water from both sources. So it wouldn't be that very effective, because one day you'd be getting treated water with the zinc orthophosphate, the next day you might be getting water from Spectacle Pond that isn't treated. By the end of this year, we'll have it fully in the system, and it should become more effective. We're already seeing some reductions in the lead and copper corrosion, and we did an additional 6 samples last month, and we saw some minimal but some major reduction in the lead. So it is becoming effective. And I also mentioned you fix one problem and you create another problem.
And I said, stop doing it.
Stop doing it. Well, so we fixed the PFAS problem, we created the lead problem. Now we're going to fix the lead problem with the zinc orthophosphate, but now we're putting zinc, which is a metal, and phosphate, which is a nutrient, in our water that's going to go to our wastewater plant. And now we're going to have to do something with our wastewater discharge permit, which we're working on that with the EPA. Just to give you a little picture, I like this graphic. So what the orthophosphate does is it forms a protective layer on the inside of your plumbing in your house. And you can see with that protective layer, it's like a coating. Without it, then some of the metals from the pipe get leached out. And that's why what happens is, if you're getting treated water and it's building up the layer, then you get untreated water and it's taking the layer off. So that's why it's not effective until all of your water is treated. And then there's also a whole process of how much we dose and then how we reduce that down. But it'll require a lot more sampling out in the system once we get this going. So what are we doing? We're optimizing our corrosion control treatment. We've done some additional water quality sampling out in the water system. We're analyzing that data to see how much we're changing our chloride sulfate ratio. All these things take time to turn over. You can see in our system we have 2.5 million gallons of storage plus a lot of storage in the pipe. So by the time you get, say, out to the hospital at the end of Washington Street, there's a lot of water that has to get changed before we start seeing effects out there. We did some additional lead sampling at certain locations, and this is part of the public education program. I think everybody in town, we mailed out this pamphlet to that has a lot of information about what we did, or what the sample results were, what we're doing about it, and some information about lead in your water. I just prepared a press release that we'll be sending out to local newspaper and radio and the APAC. This is a public meeting, so hopefully the public sees this and study and learn something. And then distribution of additional information to daycare facilities and hospitals and things like that. I've already put some pamphlets out at the Board of Health, here at Town Hall, at the library. So we're working on getting more information out. And and hopefully I'm trying to schedule a little interview with APAC to talk about, just in general, the PFAS treatment and the lead issue. So that'll be on the cable TV soon. So what is lead and how am I exposed to it? So lead is a toxic metal that is harmful if inhaled or swallowed. Can be found in air, soil, dust, food, and water. The air issue has gone down quite a bit because we used to have leaded gasoline. With the unleaded gas, it's lowered that exposure quite a bit. The biggest exposure is lead paint chips, and you see that a lot in older houses. The kids like to gnaw on the windowsills or pick up paint chips. The lead gives it kind of a sweet flavor, so it's a little hard to determine. And if you see someone, my wife is a medical technician, retired, but we talked a lot about while she was doing this about lead in testing in infants and kids. And every kid before they go to school has several tests for lead in their blood. She said in her 25 years doing it, they only had one that what they considered lead poisoning, and they've only had a few that were over the state health limit on lead. That was, I want to say, 8 micrograms per deciliter used to be the standard. It keeps going down. I think it's 5 now. It was interesting. I had a couple of years ago a resident call me and said, I think there's high lead in the water. My daughter had her blood lead sample come back with 3 micrograms per deciliter. And I said, well, that's below the CDC limit of 5, but let me check on that. And my wife said, that's the reportable limit. So that's the minimum. That's the minimum they put on anybody. So if you get a 3, it might mean there's 0, but that's what they put on the test, or that's what they were doing before she retired last year. So exposure from drinking water is estimated at 10 to 20% of the total exposure. So it's not a huge percentage, but it's one that we can control. Potential health effects, most severe in children, behavioral and learning problems. This is why it's so important in schools that we test the lead. And the Page Hilltop School went through a big program. We did a lot of testing with them, discovered pretty high levels of lead because it's an older building with old fixtures. And they did a lot of work to get the people to either not use the fixtures that had the lead in them, do some flushing and a lot of precautions at the school. The high school was fine because it's all new plumbing. pregnant women can cause the baby to be premature, affect baby's brain and kidney development. There's risk for miscarriage, and then for us other adults, cardiovascular effects, increased blood pressure, hypertension, decreased kidney function, reproductive problems. Again, I'm not a doctor or toxicologist, so and the amount of lead that we're seeing is pretty minor. But if you are experiencing any of these, you need to talk to your doctor more about what the sources may be. So some of the steps you can do, and as I said, the DPW has this pretty much under control. I would guess our next round of sampling we're going to be fine, but in the meantime, you can run your water to flush out the lead. Run it for about 15 or 30 seconds before you use it for cooking or drinking. Use cold, fresh water for cooking and preparing baby formula. You don't want to use hot water because the hot water tends to pick up more of the corrosion out of it. Don't boil your water to remove lead. It won't remove it. It just will make it more concentrated because you're evaporating some of the water, and so the lead concentration goes up. And then you can identify and replace plumbing fixtures containing lead or solder. And as I mentioned, it's more the older faucets in the kitchen, bathroom sinks that have the...
Don't you think you have a contradiction here? You're saying use cold, fresh water for cooking and preparing baby formula, which you're probably going to boil, but then you're saying do not boil your water. Now, I understand you're not boiling your water to remove lead or copper, but now with what you just said, how it condenses it, we've just kind of contradicted. We got to boil the water. So I think your one sentence
I think what he's saying
could be
on the
confusing.
second to last bullet is that boiling your water will not remove the lead or the copper.
Then I think that sentence should be reworded.
Okay,
Like boiling your water does not remove lead or copper.
right. So this, and again, this is right out of the EPA.
No,
Talking point.
no, I understand. I'm just saying that, you know, if I see this,
Yeah.
somebody else is gonna see it that way,
Yeah, okay.
okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's move
When I
on.
point something out.
Okay, so more steps you could take. Test your water for lead. As I mentioned, the 40-plus people that we test water for, that's an approved site that we have to sit down and do a map and explain why we pick these houses. But if people want us to run a sample while we're doing this, we can definitely take care of it. It's not that expensive. I don't want to sample all 3,300 customers in town, but if you have a concern, we'll see what we can do for you. You can, if you're still concerned, consider purchasing bottled water or a water filter. Make sure that if you are getting a water filter, that you make sure it removes lead, or contact your healthcare provider, your doctor, and find out if you need to have your child tested for lead. Like I said, I think they test before they go to school. I think they do 3 lead tests at the pediatrician's office. It's pretty frequent. So they'll have those results that you may not be aware of. There's tons of information on the websites, the EPA or mass.gov. And if anyone wants to, well, I'll put this presentation up on the website. I think these are also in the newsletter that I sent, or the information pack that I sent out. And or they can call me, and I'd be more than happy to tell them everything I know about lead and water. And I'm not a doctor. Thank you.
All right.
Any questions?
Jim, I'm not a doctor. I'm a DPW superintendent.
Thank you, Mark.
Charlie has
Oh, yeah. I'll have them sign.
I don't have any other questions. Janice?
No.
Thanks very much, very
Thank-
informative,
you're welcome.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you.
Take it easy, guys.
Next on the agenda, we have Chief Tim Johnson, Air Fire Department. Thank you, gentlemen, for your patience.
No problem. And Deputy Janice Garrett is going to join us.
Welcome.
You good?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
members of the board, just to frame the first issue, which is the firefighters safer grant. First, congratulations to Chief Johnston and Deputy Janiskevich and the entire fire department for securing the safer grant award in the amount of $992,680. I believe this was our fourth application on that, or third.
Yeah, third one, yeah, third for the four, yeah.
And just before I turn it over to the chief, as the board is aware, and the chief will touch upon this, for some time, the town has been looking at and is concerned, as is the fire department, about the minimum manning on each of the shifts. As the fire department has grown, as the need for EMS, and as far as our mutual aid agreements and so forth, and the chief will touch upon that. Just to give it some context, for some time, for the last several years, we've agreed to study and look at this issue, which we have. The challenge was there should be four-member crews, which the chief will get into. The biggest challenge to get to that standard, if you will, would require the hiring of 4 more positions, hence where the safer grant comes in. So the chief will give an overview of sort of the need, and then we can talk a little bit about the terms of the grant and the implications of the grant in future budget years, and some suggestions that we have related to that.
Great, thank you, Robert.
Chief.
Mr. Chair, if I can just like add on to how we got
Absolutely.
here. So SAFER grant, so the SAFER is an acronym for Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, just so everyone knows that's the acronym for that. So back in 2019, both, as Robert said, the town and the firefighters union got together. It's not an arbitrary, let's add on. It was realized that we were having more calls as a department, multiple calls, whether they're multiple fire and ambulance calls. We had staffing issues where call members can't come back. So that's what started this whole conversation. So during that conversation, it was added that the town would agree with the union that they would look into safer grants, which is what we've done. So for us, it is actually the second time we've done it for 4 members. We had done the safer grant once for maybe the fire prevention position, but we were unsuccessful on it. So we were successful on our second attempt at the 4 firefighters, which would give us an extra person per shift, which would be 24/7 coverage would be 4 personnel. So we awarded that. So what that does is, to get that grant is what we would be required to come up to NFPA 1710 standards. So the NFPA is the National Fire Protection Association. That is sort of like our firefighters guidebook. That's what we work off. They tell us how we build fire trucks, what kind of ladders we carry on them, how the personnel works. So how do we get to 4? So you essentially come up to that standard. You have 4 personnel in the fire engine. You look at them as 25% each. That gives us 100%. So most of the time we were operating at around 75, sometimes 50, depending on what personnel was there, sometimes 25%. So we were successful. So for that grant, we were agreeing to abide by those standards. So we awarded the $992,680. That will something new this year because of COVID. Unlike other grants, they actually fund it 100%. So that would include the 4 firefighters' salaries, the 15, and if I miss some, Jeremy just chime in, $15,000 in benefits. They would cover their paramedic stipend along with their firefighter 1-2 certification. We would be on the hook for some smaller numbers like their clothing allowance if they would have an education and some of those things and some other stipends, but we don't know who we're hiring, so we don't know that number. But it would be very, very small. The town would be responsible for. So the good thing is that would be fully funded. The grant period would be from February of 22 to February of 25. Then the town would be responsible for those 4 firefighters after that. The only other thing that we would have to abide by the grant is that we would be responsible for having 19 full-time members of the department during the length of that grant. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Did I miss anything? That's good. So that's where it stands. So what we're looking for from the board tonight is we have till September 20th to say that we are willing to take the money and abide by the grant parameters. So that's what we're looking from the board tonight, to go ahead and give us authorization to move forward with the SAFER grant.
Okay, any questions?
I got no questions.
I don't have any questions either. I'm not gonna look away from $992,000.
Right, so you want a motion?
Yeah, I think that's what we should do, and that would authorize
Okay.
me, I think, that we just gotta sign the SAFER grant and send it back to the federal government, yeah.
Okay, you want to do it, or?
I'll,
Okay. I make a motion that the board approve the firefighter's SAFER grant as discussed tonight, and say yes, yes, yes.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. Great work,
And
thank
like
you.
I said,
Yeah, that is awesome.
Deputy Janice Garrett was the primary author of it, but like I said, he did the first one as a captain, and the
Look
next,
at
I
that,
think,
been a
was as
deputy
captain.
chief for a short time, look at that.
We had a pretty good group. Everyone contributes.
Yeah,
to-
no, this is
Work with
absolutely
them.
awesome. This is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it's very time consuming to become that successful at such a large grant number. We were lucky enough to be in the first round, having not made it in years past, so
Yeah. No,
it
this
certainly
is,
will be a great benefit to the
this is
town.
absolutely
Excellent.
great.
Robert?
Mr. Chair, just briefly, in the interest of time, at a future board meeting and future meeting for this group as we move forward with the budget process, the chief, the finance manager, and myself will be putting forth a recommendation for the board to consider putting aside some funding, whether through stabilization of the appropriate vehicle, to take into account the fourth year when the grant sunsets and the cost
Yeah.
impact. We want to be proactive in absorbing that, which we will be. So I just want to
Okay.
point that out for future discussion.
Thank you.
And great job.
Is the next one mutual aid stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's somewhat of a housekeeping item. I had some correspondence with the state fire marshal, and they want to know if we had adopted chapter 4859A, which essentially is just, if we go mutual aid, our department members shall have the same immunities and privileges as performing the same within our respective town, city, and district. So I looked into that. I talked to retired Chief Pedrazi, he thought it was already done. I checked with Ms. Copeland, the town clerk, she couldn't find it. She checked with the state, they weren't able. So what I'm looking for the board is to accept the provisions of that one. And also section, chapter 40, section 4J is the emergency management side of the same provisions.
Okay.
And then I checked with Mark and Dan, and 4K is the DPW. So the police have already done it, so that would be, the town would therefore accept all the provisions for mutual aid for all the public safety departments. So
Okay.
I'm just looking for the board to accept the ones that were presented before you.
Any questions?
No, no questions.
I'll go ahead, I'll make a motion that the select board adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 59A, Chapter 40, Sections 4J and 4K related to mutual aid as presented.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. Thank you.
And lastly, Mr. Chair, as we're all aware of PFAS, PFOS, we're well aware we spent millions of dollars as a town, and some of it is contributed to firefighting foam. So we don't have any of what they call long chain firefighting foam, that's called legacy foam, which is prior to 2003. We do possess some that does have short chain, which is the AFFF foam that we carry on our firefighting apparatus, and we have some extra in case we would use that. So what I would ask the town to approve some money that the town become PFAS free in our firefighting foam. So we would spend approximately $7,978 to remediate the foam that we have, and about in the amount of $4,920 to replace that, which is green foam, which is certified. It's synthetic foam, so it contains none of those the PFAS family foams. By doing that, I think at least we get the fire department as a green foam. The last thing we would do is we house the foam trailer for the state, but the state's looking at remediating that. You know, of course, they
Okay.
own that. So, but I think it's important that the town become free if we had to use that firefighting foam, and there were any contaminants, they know it wouldn't come from us. So I think for $12,898, it would be a benefit to town that have green foam and we contain no PFAS in any of our firefighting foam products.
Okay.
Okay.
Any
So-
questions?
No, I have no questions. So he needs 12,000, you wrote it down?
$12,898.
And Mr. Chair, if I might add, I know I'd asked Robert, if we could appropriate up to 15,000 just in case they come and clean out the firefighting tanks, the 3 foam cells we have in the apparatus, if they were running any glitches, we could have a little room if there wasn't.
Okay.
We have a
So
question
moved.
on Zoom, actually.
Yes.
There's a question from Lori Meering. What about the buyback program?
So there,
She's right there.
if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
So the
please.
DEP has a buyback program that is depleted. They more direct that towards legacy foams, which are before '03, and that is not funded right now. I reached out to the DEP about 3 or 4 months ago, and they look more towards foams that are really bad, considered where ours aren't as bad, they're short-chain.
Right.
I just think it's more important that we start off, where everything's gonna be PFAS-free in our wells. It is important that if we were to have to use foam, that would be the green foam if it were run down the street. I think it's important not to have any contaminants. But
Okay.
we did look at that, there's just
You
not
did.
the money for that
Yes.
right now.
Okay.
Did that answer Lori's question?
It's really hard to understand what the conversations are. You can sit closer to the mic, it might help.
Oh, so that mic doesn't pick that up. It's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mic's not for that. Just talk loud.
Sure, is it on the TV?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on the TV.
It sounded like you tried and it doesn't apply to what you have.
Yeah, correct. So can you hear me now okay?
I can hear you very well, thank
So
you.
so legacy foams are what they concentrate on, which are the foams before 2003. And they've depleted their funds. I spoke to the DEP not too long ago, say over the summertime. And they concentrate more on the legacy foams, where we're trying to get rid of our foam that has PFAS, but it's considered short chain, so it's a little bit better for the environment, but not fully good. So we're looking to go to all the green foam. So at least from the foam part, there's no money available at the present time.
Thank you, yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so you're looking for authorization of up to 15,000 for a little bit of wiggle room.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
You got it? You want me to do it?
I make a motion that the board authorize UDAG funds of up to $15,000 for the PFAS fire foam remediation as presented tonight.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're approved.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Anything
Thank
else?
you.
Appreciate it. Nope, that's it.
Thank you for
Yep.
tonight. Thanks for your patience.
Have a
Appreciate
good
it.
evening. Yep.
Have a good
Thank you
night.
too.
Again, good job on that grant and
Thank
everything.
you very much. That's my tea. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
All right. Next we have Al Minoyan, Director, Community and Economic Development Office. Alan, welcome.
Look at he's all spiffy tonight.
Every now and then, Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just here this evening for the annual item, sent before you, see if we could receive your authorization, approval for the FY 2020 UDAG portion of the Department of Community and Economic Development. And that amount would be $56,430.
And to remind people what that's for?
Yes. That portion of the budget, and our budget is broken up, it has, 3 different sources, would be really to cover the cost in general of the budget, everything, really, including salaries. I believe salaries, you can correct me, Robert, if I do. I
Yes,
believe,
it is.
salary portion of it, as well as materials, supplies, and all the little special things we do during the year, to contribute to our economic and community development advancements in the town. So it really is something that sort of really covers the range of costs. And, the Community Development Program Manager myself, we try every year to come in pretty much at a level funded, budget in terms of things beyond salaries. And we look forward to the upcoming year. Continue to perform at a high level for the residents and taxpayers of this fine town.
I think your department does a great job.
Yes.
I appreciate all the work that everyone does.
Thank you.
Since the day he arrived, I have to say, since the day Alan arrived, he hit the ground running. Sometimes you have to slow him down a little bit, but the man hit the ground running since the day he arrived, and it's very appreciated.
Thank
You
you.
have a great department.
It is, I feel very fortunate to have a colleague, in Alicia Hersey.
Yep.
We've developed a strong working relationship, and I feel very fortunate. The people I work with.
Any questions?
I have no questions.
No questions, very straightforward.
Yep.
Appreciate you taking the time and your patience to bring this to us.
So I'll make a motion that the board approve the EDAG portion of the FY 2022 budget in the amount of $56,430, which would be the portion for the Air Department Community and Economic Development.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was a mouthful.
All set?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks again for your patience.
My pleasure. It's always good content at select board meetings.
We try our best. Next item on the agenda is the town manager's report.
Mr.
I'll
Chair.
turn it over to Robert.
Members of the board, good evening. Under the administrative update in the packet, you have the town warrants that were reviewed and approved since the board last met on August 17th. A brief administrative update, just so the board is aware, we will be having a new audit firm, the firm of Roselli, Clark and Associates. Gisty and Kingston, which have been the town's auditors for some time, are actually retiring, and we're in mid-contract with them. So the terms and the rate, which was favorable, will be transferred to Roselli, Clark and Associates, who have always been our close number two. As the board is aware, the finance manager goes out to bid every 3 years. So they'll be assuming the auditing for the town, assuming the remainder of the contract till we go out to bid. So I think that's a positive as well, having a new set of eyes. But we wish Jim and Kingston all the best at their retirement. I'm pleased to report that the new senior center director, Katie Petrossi, hit the ground running on September 1st. As you probably have seen, the Council on Aging is hosting a meet and greet on September 15th at noon at the center outside with lunch provided. The board is of course invited. I know that the lunchtime on a weekday is tough, but it's an opportunity. It's open to the public. It's an opportunity just for a meet and greet as we move forward with the senior center. So that's a positive. As mentioned by the moderator earlier in the meeting, and I will be meeting with him and the town clerk and town council very shortly regarding town meeting. Town meeting sort of preview, if you will, right now is scheduled October 25th at 7 p.m. In the high school auditorium, using the same protocol we've used through COVID with mandatory masks, the social distancing, the overflow room, and we can have that discussion further on the 21st, and I'll connect with the moderator with that same format that has worked in a safe and positive way for town meeting. The deadline for warrant articles and citizens petitions is Friday, October 1st. The select board is scheduled to finalize and approve the warrant on October 5th. As of right now, potential articles that we are aware of, again, we'll have hopefully a more detailed update on the 21st, but the transfer of the Woodlawn Cemetery, and Superintendent Wetzel and I will be making a brief update to the board on the 21st on that study. That will be one of the articles. On the cell tower lease, Ms. Antonellis is preparing. The cell tower lease will expire in the next 2 years, and we have to go out to bid for that, and it requires town meeting authorization to authorize the select board to do the lease. Janet Provadakis, the chair of CPC, has indicated to me tentatively there could be up to 3 articles for CPC funded projects. More to come hopefully in the next week. And we're also aware of a potential citizens petition regarding a proposed zoning change over on Harvard Road. So again, it's still early. We'll keep you updated as more come in, and we're looking to have a more detailed update on the 21st. Also for the 21st, we have a real positive event that night. We're looking to present the town's Boston Post cane at the September 21st meeting. As the board will recall, and God bless him, the previous
Mrs. Winslow.
Mrs. Winslow has passed, and so this town clerk will be coming forth with the presentation for the 21st, and that should be a positive event. There was a delay, obviously, due to COVID and so forth. And I think that sort of covers just a brief administrative update for the board. I'll get into the action items. There's one appointment tonight. I respectfully recommend that the select board vote to appoint Miss Diane Miller of Ayer to an unexpired 3-year term on the Ayer Cultural Council. The appointment will expire on June 30th of 2023.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So as we discussed, I started the discussion on August 17th about remote participation for public meetings. As we have returned to in-person public meetings starting in June, and as we're moving forward, from my vantage point, I think many would hope that the COVID situation was further along. Over the summer, we are currently offering a hybrid model with the public having the opportunity to participate remotely or in person, with all boards in person. And some of the concerns that have come up from some residents, from some board and commission members and some staff is when the meetings have large attendance, in-person attendance. And as everybody's aware, right now we have a mask advisory, and people have been pretty good with that, even tonight wearing masks. But the concern, and the board is aware of them, we've had some meetings over the summer where we were pushing 50, 60 people in here, not fully masked. Of course, this was before the advisory, and it's just an advisory. So since the board last met, I know we discussed it on the 17th, and no action was taken. And we continue to monitor it very closely. The acts of 2021 would allow us, as I mentioned on the 17th, to do remote meetings through April 1st. Ms. Antonellis checked with town council, and in speaking with town council, it can be up to each board, committee, and commission as to how they want to conduct their meeting. So at this point, I would say, barring any specific state or federal change, which doesn't exist, because I think if we get into a situation as we did during the beginning of the pandemic, it only makes sense that there's a global policy set by the select board. At this point, I think, and in talking with folks and polling since, and we could leave it up to the individual boards and committees whether they want to do remote or in person, as long as they're following all of the rules. So it's right. I know you're seeing a lot around here. You're seeing that some towns and so forth are going to mask mandates and so forth.
Littleton just did.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a discussion, for another, that isn't on the agenda, and maybe the board wants to consider that in the future. But again, our goal has always been, and this board especially, and its support, has to make sure that people, staff, public, committee are safe. And also part of that safety is a level of comfort. And so we said we would put it on the agenda again for further discussion. Right now, there's no, I wish it was a clear, answer, but people have been wearing masks pretty much in attendance at meetings and board members. So at this point, I think the recommendation would be sort of status quo. But that could change.
Oh, exactly.
As we know,
Yeah.
over the last 18 months, it could change tomorrow now that we
Right.
said it,
And
so,
they found a new variant. so-
yeah. Um,
The
Can I
new-
just add in real quick?
Yeah.
I think if each board decides what to do, like, this should not be an option, meaning some people in the room, some people on Zoom, they can't hear.
Yeah.
So it's either like everyone's on Zoom or, you know what I mean? I mean, Lori couldn't hear Mark or the chief.
When you say on like meeting attendance, so,
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just, you can't
Yeah.
hear the speaker here when the microphone's behind you for that.
have
We
we
don't have the
identified the
clear
part
dir-
that we need for that? Sorry.
I've asked a couple times, I haven't
Okay.
heard
There has to
anything
be,
back.
there has to be a way to hook up a little microphone to that. There has to be.
Right.
So-
I mean, if we
I would
were
ask that
home, we would manage
take a
to be
look
able
at
to do this.
that.
Yeah.
I
But
would just-
I agree with your point. I think
yeah.
the hybrid is, we're struggling with the sound quality on the hybrid.
And just to add to that point real quick, Mr. Chair, and I'm in no way throwing anybody under the bus, APAC or IT and so forth, but we've had these conversations with them, and my intent is, when IT returns, she's away this week, Ms. Antonelli's going to convene a meeting, and I've talked to facilities, I've talked generally to IT, and we need to, once and for all, and we'll come to you with that price tag, and there may be some funding, whether it's through ARPA or CARES, and because I hope I'm wrong on the future of COVID, but what I'm getting at is turn this into a true 21st century meeting room, which addresses all of the issues. We're just not there yet.
Okay. Janice?
To be fair, to kind of back up what he's saying, you know, he's correct, this has been an ongoing issue. But to be fair, there are many times when somebody sits down and we ask them, please speak up, and they get lower because they get scared. We have people that are actually sitting in the room that cannot hear. And there have been times when I've actually watched the video and you cannot hear. So this hearing problem, regardless of whether we're remote or not, it exists. It exists.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think that, though, I understand the problems with the hybrid, but would Lori have been comfortable coming in? I mean, we had kind of a full room and none of them were socially distancing.
Yeah.
So, you know, would she have been comfortable coming in? This enabled her to be able to participate into this meeting.
Agreed.
Now, but, you know, but it is incumbent upon us to maybe speak up. Honestly, we have microphones on the table that are here for looks. They've been here for looks for years.
No, those
No,
work with
every
the
time we
cameras.
talk into the microphones, we get told nobody can hear. Nobody can hear. I've watched the video.
All right.
Nobody can hear.
Okay, so let's not belittle a point. So we know we need to solve the sound issue, whether it's in a hybrid model or even in a in-person model also.
Right.
Okay, so let's focus on that when IT gets back.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
plan.
And like, I know, I've said in previous meetings, you know,
You all have,
what the
yeah.
price tag is, you know, let's get that fixed because it's an important part of our
Yeah.
everyday function.
Yeah. So,
But going forward, I would recommend that as we, you know, have somebody who wants to be put on the agenda,
Yeah.
that they just be reminded as to, you know, be careful as to how many people you're bringing due to, you know,
yeah,
the COVID and everything.
yeah, absolutely, right. So I think right now, we continue sort of with the status quo, with the takeaway that if boards or committees do decide to meet remotely, by law, it'll be all the appropriate stuff on the agenda,
Yeah.
and what have you. And we should, I won't, unless the board wants to keep it as a standing item, but if there's changes before the next meeting, or something tells me we'll be discussing this again. The next item in your packet, as we discussed on the 17th, is sort of the proposed 2021-2022 sort of budget schedule, which this project, since we started a few years ago, I think has worked very well in terms of having a set schedule in which that schedule, if it needs to be changed, it has to come to the select board. It keeps everybody, you know, on target and so forth. So this is draft 2 from draft 1 when we met. In the interest of time, I just wanted to highlight just a couple of the changes to draft 2. We still have to populate it with the by-board meetings, which I'll connect with Selectman Hood on, as well as the OPEB Board of Trustees. That's in process. The rate review meetings are on here. They meet the fourth Tuesday at
And you
4.
need capital planning.
Yes, and the capital planning is the other, the one piece on that we have, if you go to October, so September, which it's hard to believe it's already past Labor Day, there's not too much there, but if you go to October, as I mentioned, the warrant closes Friday, October 1st at noon. Select Board scheduled to approve on October 5th, following previous years. The capital directive for people to prepare the capital will go out October 8th, and that gives them till October 29th, which departments are already working on this, ready to go. The fall special town meeting is Monday, October 25th. If you go to November, just real quickly, there are 3 union contracts that are up for negotiation, and we will start those by November 1st. Some informal discussions have already started. The goal, obviously, to start these contract negotiations earlier so they conclude earlier, so we have the budget impact for the FY23 budget. Last year, because of COVID and some other factors, it was down to the wire. We're trying to avoid that this year. December 1st, the budget directive goes out, so this is the operating budget directive across all departments, and those will be due back by the 30th. The Select Board's tax classification hearing with the Board of Assessors, Tuesday, December 7th. It's usually around that time. That's in consultation with the assessors, which we're looking at. So the budgets will come in right before the new year. This is draft 1. The town clerk has advised that the Select Board on January 4th of 2022 should call the annual election. It's a procedural matter. And by January 14th, draft 1 of the budget, so that's the latest, would go to the Select Board in the FinCom. And you can see, and this is based on previous history, January 18th, looking for the board to open the annual town meeting warrant, looking to do the first budget public forum on January 26th, where we publicly discuss sort of the larger conceptual look of the budget at that point. In February 2nd, the non-union contract negotiations. These are for personal service contracts for some department heads. There are some up this year. They tend not to be nearly as involved as the union negotiations. So by starting those in February, the goal is to have that wrapped up within the month. In March, per the regional school district, the Select Board, March 1st, the regional school committee and the superintendent come to present the budget. We're looking.
Don't they usually do it on an off night, an off meeting night?
Yeah, we're hoping that we can get it on the on night.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you. I know the superintendent's main focus has been reopening school, but that's a good point. That could change slightly, but that's the goal. I'd like to finish the union contracts by March 4th, the non-union by the end of March, and have the second forum on March 30th, the second budget forum. And then the April closing of the warrant, April 1st, Select Board FinCom, April 5th approval, warrant to print by the 8th, the annual town meeting on April 25th. And I think as we talk about every year, and this is always the challenge, and not necessarily for tonight, but you may have comments for tonight or be thinking, is always we seem to always get compressed for time at the end of the process. So I'm open to any suggestions. The annual town meeting is the 25th, and then it'll be spring again in May. At this point, the town election would be on Tuesday, May 10th. So that's sort of draft 2. As we discussed since we put this forward, we were looking, to have the board finalize and approve it by the September 21st meeting. Frankly, if it's the October 5th meeting, I looked back, we've approved it, you have approved it both the end of September and beginning of October, if the board needs more time or if we need some more time to fill it in. So that's sort of the overview.
So I think in March, instead of having that rate review committee meeting on March 22nd, I would think that we're going to present to the board either on the 15th or at the very
Okay.
least on the 5th of April for the water and sewer.
Okay, yeah. And we've got a meeting this month, so we
Yes.
can discuss that further.
Right,
Right,
so-
yep. Right, because the rates have either been one of the March meetings or
Right.
the first in
Yeah.
April.
So, and we're going to want to make sure that it makes it, you know, so I'm going to lean towards the 15th of March.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that's what I'm going to try to guide them to, because that way we can have it all approved, have all the numbers and everything be able to go into print.
Yeah.
So that's,
All right.
that's what I'm hoping happens. It probably won't, but that's what I'm hoping.
Life's what happens when you make plans.
That's right.
So I know we mentioned capital planning and buy board both need to be overlaid. I know I did capital planning last year, but it was my first year. When do we usually start on capital?
So the capital process, we usually, it'll go out in October.
Yeah.
They back in November. And then the committee,
Usually
it's-
meets every week in December.
yeah, usually about December, January.
Okay.
Because they're
That'll work.
late.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
And I don't want, I've stopped, well, I'm going to say it to illustrate a point, but every year I say there's not going to be a lot of capital. There ends up being a lot of capital, so.
Yeah, so stop jinxing us.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of capital, which means there'll be little, but, yeah, so December-ish.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Into January, so. So as you look it over, if there are other questions or so forth, I know we've got to fill in a few more holes. We'll bring it back up on the 21st. If we're comfortable at that, if the board's comfortable at that point. If not, I'd say no later than October 5th, and we'll get that in place. The last item is amendment number 7 to the agreement for veteran services with Mass Development Devens. As the board is aware, the town of Ayer has the contract to provide the veterans services to any veterans living on Devens. A special thanks to Mr. Mike Detillion, our Veterans Service Officer, who does an excellent job. And Amendment 7 just extends the existing agreement for a year. And everything is correct in terms of the terms of that contract.
Okay. Any questions?
I have no questions.
I'll make a motion that the Air Select Board approve amendment number 7, agreement for veteran services with Mass Development Devens.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. There's nothing on the agenda for new business and Select Board member questions. Anything?
Just something that I thought of when we
Sure.
were talking about the earlier conversation with Devon's Press and everything, and we mentioned about, you know, if we have to, we can meet next week. So I would just kind of like for us to be considered that we might be meeting next week. And I understand that sometimes Tuesdays are tough because other meetings happen and everything. Wait a minute. Okay. I tried. That if need be, it fall under maybe an emergency meeting provision. Meaning if by the time everything that needs to be discussed or whatever, if there's something to be discussed, let's meet. If there's not time for the normal, hey, we're going to put the agenda, that maybe that
Right.
it falls into
Question
the
is what would
emergency.
constitute an emergency?
Well, that's what I'm
in
saying.
this
That's why I'm bringing it up, so that,
Okay.
you know, it can be peeked at while we go forward. So, and that was it.
instance. Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of meeting minutes from August 17th, 2021. I didn't have any adjustments or edits.
So I wasn't here, but it looked good, so.
It was a good meeting. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for August 17th, 2021 as presented.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And The select board will not be going into executive session. I'll ask Janice to read us in.
Mr. Chair, I move to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30 Alpha, Section 21 Alpha, Exemption Number 3, to discuss litigation strategy relating to the National Opioid Litigation Bankruptcy Plan and to adjourn at the conclusion of the executive session. To discuss these items in open session would be detrimental to the town's negotiating strategy.
I will second. Roll call the vote. Selectperson Livingston?
Aye.
Selectperson Hood says aye. We're in executive session. Thank you.